again. I want to talk today, we're going to do a little special studcast here today. We're going to talk about the stud and the Armstrong angle from the very beginning, actually. And we're going to really go into some depth here about how this was all done. This angle is actually 10 years long. It started in 1978 and it goes to 1988. It lights up Southeastern Wrestling. The angles go on into Continental Wrestling. Now we're seeing on Southeastern Rewind now, Continental number 6 has just been played. And it has a great deal of bearing on all of this process over 10 years. It's probably the longest running wrestling angle in the history of the sport, and it involves two families, the Welches and the Armstrongs. And I want to go back and kind of tell everybody how it all started and how we got to the point to where we are when we get to Continental Show number 6 as to what's going on. So let me start with Knoxville, Tennessee, Southeastern Wrestling. Started the company in 1974. I had known Bob Armstrong since I was a senior in high school. In fact, in 1966, the first time I met Bob Armstrong, I was a senior in high school. He was the NWA Rookie of the Year. He was the best young wrestler in all of wrestling. And wow, what a tremendous wrestler he was. Way back in that time, he was a fireman and just started wrestling in his first year, and looked like he'd been wrestling for 5 years. So Bob and I end up in wrestling together in Florida in 1973 and 1974. We're both baby faces, obviously. And so when I go there in Southeastern, Bob comes and wrestles for me some in 1976 as a baby face, obviously. He was one of the greatest of all time. And then he comes in 77 and stays most of that year in 1977. He loses a match in 77. For those people that listen to the studcast, this is pretty much in that time frame in 1977. You'll be familiar with that. He loses a match and he has to go out. He goes to Georgia for a while. 2-3 weeks later, I lose a loser league title match at that same time frame. And the reason for that was that I had been looking to start a second territory. And I started to search in 1977 for another territory because Southeastern had really caught on fire. And I felt like I had so many quality wrestlers waiting to get into the territory that I thought, why don't I just create another territory and bring in the wrestlers, all the wrestlers that I want to bring in, and have two territories. Pretty difficult deal to do, and it hadn't been done. Nobody really had two territories. So I tried to pick between Ohio, the state of Ohio, and the Gulf Coast territory that was owned by my relatives, the Fields brothers, which was all along the Gulf Coast, the state of Alabama, over into Mississippi, and the edges of Georgia. Established territory, been there a long time. Anyway, I decided that I want to buy Gulf Coast Wrestling from the Fields brothers. And I want to, because I already have a territory at the time and it's doing very well, I'm not greedy enough to want to own a second territory all myself. So I have a great relationship at this point with Bob Armstrong, great friends. And instead of going into which is going to be Southeastern, let's call the first one Southeastern Knoxville, this is going to become Southeastern Pensacola. And I take Bob Armstrong, I offer to sell him a percentage of this company. And wow, it was a great opportunity for him. He really loved the idea. He was so thankful. I brought my brother, got him a piece of it, Jimmy Golden, my cousin, and my other cousin, Roy Lee Welch. So, it's kind of like a family member, a family deal, and Bob is family. And that's the way I always considered him to be, was family. So in 1978, we're going to open up Gulf Coast Wrestling, okay? Southeastern Pensacola. Me and Bob had lost these loser leave towns in Knoxville, so we really weren't able to wrestle on those cards, but we did. That was all set up so that we could go and be in that first group of wrestlers to go down to the Gulf Coast, because that territory had been basically hurt really badly. Wasn't very good, it wasn't drawing, but I knew if me and Bob went down there, I went down as a heel, he went down as a babyface. And we wrestled each other most of the first 6 months that we ran that company down there. We took a bunch of great talent with us. David Schultz went with us. The Assassins went with us. Had a lot of, Tony Charles went with us. So we took a great group down there too. So I had 2 wrestling companies going at the same time. I was a heel down there, and Bob was the babyface. We wrestled there all through 1978. Toward the end of 1978, I came back to Knoxville. When I came back to Knoxville, I had been a babyface there. So I came back as a babyface. Actually came back underneath the hood because I'd lost as the Tennessee Stud. Bob had lost, and he came back in that same time frame as the Georgia Jawjacker. Everybody used to talk about I jacked them jaws, man, and so he came back as the Georgia Jawjacker. So we're now back wrestling in Knoxville as baby faces. When we go to Mobile down south, I go in there and wrestle as a heel. Bob wrestles as a baby face, but he's Bob Armstrong. He's not wearing a mask. So we are progressing here into starting to work angles that are going to be for 10 years, angles that are going to build this business, both businesses for 10 years actually. So in 1979, there's a war in Knoxville. But some of the wrestlers in the Knoxville company decide they want to run their own business. And I'm still running the business I have. So I have to come to Knoxville and stay there. Bob spends a lot of time in Pensacola because we're still trying to build that in down there. I sell in 1979, the fall of 1979, my Southeastern company to Jim Barnett out of Atlanta, Georgia. And he comes in and he leaves it as Southeastern Wrestling. He doesn't even change the name of the company. But I end up going back, now we're about 1980, I go back and I'm still a heel. And when I go back to Pensacola, Bob is still a big baby face. And we work an angle that turns me baby face. We wrestled partners together in 1980, 1981. And then in 1982, Bob had never been a heel in his entire career. In 1982, we sat down, he and I, we were both booking, and I said, Bob, I want to do an angle that's never been done, and I want to turn you heel. And he was at first like, wow, you know, Ron, I don't know if I can do it. I said, Bob, you can do anything you want to do. You know, I said, you're one of the greatest talents in the world. So we worked an angle in which I was wrestling Ric Flair for the World Heavyweight Championship. The week before the title match, there was a tournament, and whoever won the tournament got the shot at Flair. The finals of that tournament, the week before the match with Flair and I, was me and Bob Armstrong, 2 baby faces, 2 friends at this point. And we had a babyface match, and I beat Bob at the end of the match. And he raised my hand along with the referee. And then he came on TV the next week, and he says, I want to, Ron, would you allow me, and he wanted to know if the Southeastern promotion would okay this. He says, I want to be the referee. He goes, I wanted to be in the ring with Flair. He says, but you're going to beat Ric Flair. He goes, I know you're going to be the next world champion, and I just want to be in the ring when it happens. And I just love to referee that match. And so, you know, I'm like, well, absolutely, man. I couldn't have a better referee than you, man. You're my best friend. And so we go into that match, and Bob turns heel that night. 10,000 people, Mobile, Alabama. one of the hottest matches, one of the hottest finishes you'll ever see. I mean, Ric Flair was scared to do it. He was just mortified when he heard the finish, like, oh God, we're going to get killed, you know. But so Bob turned heel, and in the process, I had bad knees, and he jumped off the top rope on my knee, and he didn't intend to, but I ended up having to go have surgery. So I was off for 6 months, and then I finally come back as a babyface against Bob. And Bob was wow, as good a babyface as he was an even greater heel. I mean, he was just unbelievable. It ignited Southeastern Wrestling, and now that was the only Southeastern Wrestling. By '82, Knoxville had closed down. Wasn't even anybody going there anymore. Nobody was even wrestling there anymore. So Southeastern just caught on fire with this angle. And we worked this angle for quite a while. In 1984, Bob went to work in Georgia. He had an accident in the weight room. He was on a bench. He was doing pullover press outs, in which you take the weight and drop it behind your head, pull it back over, push it up, and drop it down to your chest, and drop it off the back of the bench. And the bench turned over with him. He had a lot of weight on there, and he basically he ruined his face. He almost ripped his nose off his face. He crushed his bones below his eyes. He didn't even look like the same Bob Armstrong. He never looked like the original Bob Armstrong again. It was a horrible, horrible accident, okay? So he comes back. Now, he had been a heel. When he left Southeastern, he was still a heel. So he comes back to get well. You know, he's out of the sport for months and months. He goes a couple of surgeries on his face, and, you know, he's really having a hard time getting over this. So finally he gets well. And so when he gets well, during this time frame, as he's getting well and he comes back, once he gets better, he starts making interviews, and he just shows up on wrestling, or we send the cameras to his house. He's working out, and he says, and I'm having this big feud at this point. I'm in a real angle with Arn Anderson and Jerry Stubbs, which was a phenomenal tag team. They were the Southeastern Tag Champions, and I kept running through partners trying to beat them. I even had Andre as one of my partners. And then Bob started cutting these interviews, and he said, Ron, you know, God, I'm so sorry what I did 2 years ago to you, and I feel horrible about it. And week after week, he just said, I'm the man. I want to make it up to you. I got to make it up to you. You got to let me. Please take me as your partner. I will beat those guys. We'll be the champions. Finally, we go. We do it. Boom. You know, he saves me on television one day, big time. They're about to take my mask off at this point. They've already beaten me in Loser League Town. I'm wearing a mask, and they're about to take my mask off and put me out forever. And he saves me. So we come back, we win the championship. We come back to defend them, and the first time we got to the defense of the title, well, you know how it is, man. He'd done it to me, so I turned heel on him, and the three of us left him laying, and big time. So now Bob's the baby face, I'm a heel, we've switched back. I'm got all the heat now instead of Bob, and Brad is there. He's got sons now that are becoming wrestlers. Scott's about to start working, Steve's gonna start working. So there's a lot of things then going on. So I established for the first time my stud stable. And I start bringing in, I get all these heels that are really hot, Arn Anderson and Jerry Stubbs, Jimmy Golden, who's been a babyface the entire time we've been there. I turn him heel. He joins my stud stable. I bring in the Flame, the Assassin from out of the, I bring in the Lord Humongous. I bring in this tremendous heel crew, and I'm just a manager. And I wear this tuxedo and a little top hat, and I carry a cane. You know, I have a tremendous amount of heat that we are just on fire. Business is just selling out everywhere. So we run this for a while, in which I have the stud stable, and we're trying to get rid of Bob Armstrong. We want to get rid of Bob Armstrong more than anybody else. He's always the thorn in our side. He's the only belt we can't get is Bob Armstrong's Southeastern Championship belt. Now, those of you watching our Southeastern Rewind and watching this episode, Continental episode number 6, one of the reasons I want to do this is I want the fans to kind of understand the background of what's gone on here for about 5-7 years at this time frame. We're into 1985 now. This all started in 1978, this big feud. And so we are now at a point to where I've got my own stable. I've got Jimmy Golden as one of the guys in my stable. And we want to get Bob Armstrong. We want to get him a loser leave town, and we want him out of the territory so that I can become the greatest manager of all time and get all the belts. So that's the setup. And if you watch Continental Show number 6, you're going to see at the end of it, Jimmy Golden and I, we make an interview. Bob does something in that show. Jimmy Golden helps me beat Bob Armstrong in that same television show in a Texas death match. So we challenge Bob Armstrong to a match that's unheard of, never been done before. My brother, Rob, during all this time, is a baby face. He does not want anything to do with me and Jimmy. He's wrestling. Anytime he wrestles as a baby face. And so Jimmy and I, we come on TV and we challenge Bob Armstrong. We say, Bob Armstrong, we're going to give you a chance to run us both out of here at the same time. And all we want to do is we want to have a tag match. And in this tag match, we want you to pick any partner you want to in the world. We don't care who it is, Andre the Giant, whoever you want to get. And if either of us lose that match in the cage, we'll both leave. But if you lose, you leave. Okay? And so if you watch this Continental number 6, and it's a tremendous wrestling show. In fact, it is the biggest number so far. More fans have watched that in the first 3 days than any of them so far because it is a tremendous program. And at the end of it sets this up. And I don't want to go any further, but that's what's going to happen within the next couple of Continental shows. There's going to be that cage match. And it's going to change everything. That's where the bullet's going to come from. Everything is going to change again. It's a part of like I said, the longest wrestling angle in the history of the sport, probably. And I just want everybody to kind of be familiar with what's happened. And hopefully you're going to really enjoy what's coming because it's going to be really, really tremendous stuff. And thank you, everybody, as always, for joining me.